This is Sales Players, and I'm your host, Jesse Woodbury. I've spent my career selling for early stage companies, and now I'm on a mission to help reps and operators find tips, strategies, and resources for generating more pipeline, closing more deals, and building wealth in tech sales. To learn more, visit salesplayers.co. What's going on, Sales Players? It's Jesse here, and in this episode, I'm going to go through 20 questions. 20 questions that I like to ask over the course of my deal cycle that help me introduce the good type of friction into my deal. Now, friction is a very powerful selling tool, especially if you're selling to the mid-market or enterprise-sized companies, because you want to try to suss out where things are at with the deal, where you stand in the evaluation, and frankly, how serious they are. It's basically a stress test to help you determine whether or not you've got a real deal or someone who's just kicking tires and trying to learn more about the industry. So let's get into these. Now, a couple things to note here. First of all, you don't want to ask all 20 of these questions in a single meeting. You're going to annoy your prospect that way. And frankly, you're probably not going to have a follow-up meeting after that. So don't be asking these in your initial discovery meeting. You can space these out over the course of the deal cycle, but you can ask a good number of them in that first meeting as part of your discovery. Also, if you want a printable version of this, something you can download, print, and put on your desk so you have it handy during your calls, I'm going to put a link down in the show notes to a resource I put together that has all of these questions documented on there. So go check that out down in the show notes. So let's get into it. The first question that I actually tend to ask, and by the way, these are really in no particular order, but the first one I tend to ask is, what's actually driving this project? And again, this is a discovery question, but it's also a friction-inducing question. What's behind this? Why is the company looking to make a change, and why are they doing it right now? What things have happened inside their business that has led them to your Zoom call or your inbound lead queue to start to have a conversation about your software product? So that's the first one. What's driving this project? The second one that I like to ask, and again, not necessarily in the first meeting, but you can ask this in the first meeting, is this a sponsored project? This is actually a much more polite way to ask about budget, funding, and executive level sponsorship. And the delivery is pretty simple. You're just asking, is this a sponsored project, or is this just something you're working on in your own time to better understand this category or this industry or see what's out there? Number 3 is, who would need to sign off on this? This is going to help you provide some insight into who the key stakeholders are going to be, who the decision makers are, and who else might need to be involved at different points in the deal cycle. Number 4 is, who else would need to be involved in the evaluation? So very similar to number 3, the difference being number 3 is more focused on who signs off on it, who gives the approvals. Number 4 is more of who else would need to be involved in terms of the evaluation. Oftentimes in a complex enterprise deal, you're going to have a mix of business and technical folks involved in that deal evaluation. And question number 4, who else needs to be involved in this evaluation, is going to help you determine who else needs to stamp this along the way. Maybe not necessarily an approval, but where do you have to get buy-in in order to move this forward? Number 5 is, what happens if nothing changes and you stick with your current setup another 12 months? This is a great challenger question and a very, very friction-inducing question, because you're asking, hey, you might already have something in place today. You've obviously been operating your business for a long time in the current state. What happens if you don't make a change in the next 12 months or the next 6 months or the next quarter, whatever your time frame is for your deals? You can pose this question to help understand what the state of the project is and how quickly someone's trying to move and whether it's a high priority or not. And from there, you can continue to ask deeper questions to help you better understand the project timeline and how viable it is. That way you can go back and forecast your deal accordingly. Number 6 is, why not just stick with your current provider? So very similar to number 5, what happens if you just stay put with your current solution? You're using XYZ software today, and that sounds like it's been working well enough that your business hasn't gone bankrupt yet. Why make a change now? Why not just stay where you're at? And again, the answer to this question is going to give you a lot of valuable insight. And those insights can be used later on in your business case and in your presentation delivery to your executive decision-making committee. These things are going to really help you better understand the why behind the conversation and also help you suss out whether or not this is really a deal or it's someone who's just trying to put down 3 or 4 vendors in their evaluation so that they can say that they looked and researched a few different companies for this project. And a lot of times, decision makers at these enterprise companies will go and do just that. They'll go and find 2 or 3 or 4 vendors because that's a requirement that they have from their finance team that In order to renew with their current solution, they've got to go say that they looked at 2 or 3 other options to see if there was something cheaper or better out there in the marketplace. So why not stick with your current solution? Really try to determine that. And the answer that you get from your champion or your main contact there is going to tell you a lot. Number 7, when would you like to go live with this? This is also going to be related to the timing and the timeline of the deal and the project. If you can better understand the time frame for when someone wants to go live with this solution or this initiative, then not only are you going to be able to forecast your deal better, but it's going to help make it more concrete, and you can drive towards that goal, that go live goal as part of your deal milestones. You can start to use that date or that time frame to introduce even more friction, because you can go back and say, hey, if we want to go live by January 1st, there's a lot of things that have to happen before then, and I need to keep that train running on time. So it's going to actually help you manage the timing of the deal. Number 8 is, where do we stack rank against other vendors that you're looking at? So a lot of these are really similar questions, but they're a different way of asking them to try to get a little bit more clarification, a little more intel. This one is going to help you figure out whether or not you're the top choice in the evaluation and where things stand. A lot of times prospects are going to try to dodge this question, or they're going to be vague about it, but really push and try to understand where you stack rank against the other vendors that they're looking at. Because if you're third place right now, it's going to tell you a lot that, one, you've got to get a little more competitive. You're going to have to figure out how to outdo the other competitors that are in the deal. Number 9, why is this a priority right now? So again, going back to the why behind the deal, what's making this a priority? And this can help you ask, again, deeper level questions, because if they can articulate the why and why it's important right now, you can put that into your business case to help you drive urgency in the deal. Number 10 is, what's the best way to engage such and such executive and or such technical leader? This is going to help you start to think about your strategy for doing executive peering. Exec peering is something that I've talked a lot about on the show. It's basically starting to get your resources internally to match up with the executive resources on the prospect or customer side. That way you have vice president talking to vice president and C-level talking to C-level, and it's not AE trying to run all these different conversations and trying to have a direct conversation with the executive decision makers at the company. Instead, you're using a strategy to get your exec team matched up with their exec team. So understanding how to best engage those individuals in the deal cycle is going to help you start to begin to plan that process. Number 11, when do you plan on making a final selection? It's really important to understand the time frame for making the selection, because you also then need to understand, once they make a selection, what does their process typically look like for finalizing the paperwork and getting all the approvals necessary to sign an order form. So this is going to help you, again, with the urgency and putting things in a very concrete way, like, hey, what date are you making a decision, is going to help really make this real for both you and for the prospect. It's really going to solidify the actual goals of the project and help you manage a deal with concrete timelines. Number 12 is, if the vendor selection deadline were today, would we be the vendor of choice? So very similar to the stack rank question above. It's a very loaded question, but you are trying to be direct and asking, where do we stand? Are we the vendor of choice at this moment? What are the gaps if not? And it's going to open up a deeper dialogue around where things stand in the project and where you sit in the evaluation. Because if you're not in that top position, if you're not the vendor of choice, then you have a lot of work to do to make sure that this is a real deal. Number 13, I love this one. It's one of my favorite strategies, which is, what's in it for you? We do not use this enough in B2B sales, but it's very important to understand, especially with your champion and really anyone you work closely with in a deal, what's in it for them? Are they going to make a big bonus at the end of the year for this initiative? Are they going to get promoted? Do they have other personal reasons? Are they trying to get internal clout at their company by rolling out a solution like yours? Really try to understand what their personal motivations are, because you can continue to use this throughout the deal cycle to help motivate your champion or your buyer to keep taking action and to keep going to bat for your solution internally. Number 14, who signs the paperwork for this? Pretty straightforward. This is a question you should be asking, again, not necessarily in the first meeting, although I suppose you could, But you want to find out who signs the documents on this, who would sign an order form, and try to get that person's name. Sometimes it's the CFO, sometimes it's the VP level of that department, and sometimes it's the CEO. So you want to figure out as quickly as you can, probably not necessarily in the first call because you may not have earned the right to ask this question yet, but once things start to move in the deal, you want to figure out who signs the documents, who signs the order form to move this forward. That way you can start to think about your strategy for building a relationship with that person. Number 15, what would it take to get this done by XYZ date? So in other words, what would it take to get this signed by October 30th? And this is a form of a trial close, but again, the whole idea behind this is you're introducing friction and you're making this feel more real for your champion. And you're asking a question, a hypothetical question. And the answer to this question is going to tell you a lot about how serious your buyer is about moving forward and when they plan to move forward. Number 16, this is a really interesting one, which is what has killed projects like this internally in the past. So this is a good time to listen and hear what similar projects have been killed. Maybe there's some specific things that you can pick up on that you'll want to make sure you avoid in your process. Number 17, who on your team is likely to push back on this purchase and why? This is a way for you to uncover who the detractors might be. And the sooner you can figure this out, the better, because you can first understand their concerns so that you can later address those concerns with those detractors. Number 18, which other initiatives would get delayed or deprioritized if you move forward with us? I think this is an interesting question and an important one because you want to understand the bigger picture. If they move forward with this project and with your software, what changes or what other initiatives might get deprioritized? And sometimes what you can figure out is that there are detractors because of that. Because if someone else's project within the organization gets moved to the back burner, that can result in having detractors work against you in the deal. Number 19, what legal or procurement roadblocks have slowed you down on similar projects in the past? Again, this is going to help you plan ahead, especially in that signature stage. Once you've been selected as the vendor of choice, you want to understand what hoops you're going to have to jump through in order to get through legal, procurement, and any other vendor evaluation or onboarding processes that these companies have. And so it's good to start asking that question. And this is a perfect friction-inducing question because it's really making this real and you're starting to talk specific logistics around getting the deal done. Now, number 20 is how will your team measure the success of this initiative? You're asking for specific metrics, specific results, and deliverables that the company and the team want from your product. And this is going to help you a lot with your business case. It's going to help you craft a very strong point of view for how you're going to help their team achieve their goals, which is going to help you improve your close rate and ultimately move the project to a priority status versus on the back burner. So that's it. Those are the 20 questions. Again, I've got a downloadable document linked in the show notes. I hope this is helpful and good luck out there. Thanks for listening.